Right now. Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 6:36. And we'll call council, Councilor Cameron, Councilor Hatfield, and Councilor Chison's supposed to be on. He's on there, okay?
He's iPad.
And
Was that Manuel?
I don't believe he's there. He said he would be attending, but I don't see him on there.
okay, well, maybe I'll get it together and get some technical problems as well. I'd like to note the staff and the staff that's on the call and our audience. And what we'll do is what we start this evening, we'll like to welcome newly elected mayor, Ms. Melanie Pilon. Let's come up the front. Oh, I said mayor. And it was Councilor Young, the declaration. Clerk.
I, Melanie Pilon, having been appointed to the office of councillor in the municipality of Wawa, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I identify as an Indigenous person and assert that making the declaration of allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II would be inconsistent with my views regarding the relationship between the Crown and Indigenous peoples. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously, believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath. I will get to this song. Well, welcome, Councillor. You may now take your seat.
Get this one picture. Which one?
Yes, please.
Welcome, Councilor Young. Now, I'm a member of the council, and we'd like to thank you for Councilor.
I'd first like to thank Mayor and Council for providing me the opportunity and having trust in me to welcome me to the municipal team. Secondly, I'd like to thank my family for supporting me on this journey, particularly my mother and my partner Jacques and my aunt Beth for coming today, and everyone else who was supporting along this journey. In particular, Mayor Bev from the Township of Pickleville, and certainly Chief Pat Tangi from Chief First Nation. Two very strong women in politics in our region, and so I'd like to acknowledge their support as well. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get down to.
I believe wants to say a few words.
Oh, sorry, I'd like to welcome you, Heidi.
Would you mind just coming a little closer because the mic is over here and I'd like everyone to hear you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the mayor and council and our newest councillor, for inviting me to be a part of this really significant special event. It's really heartwarming to see an Indigenous woman on stage, and from my understanding, this is the first time that I've been to the first council on council. So I see more than ever a real opportunity for us to work closely together with our community. It's beautiful to see the number of women that are actually here. And from our indigenous culture, we believe that the women are the backbones of the community, and a lot of our elders that works well, but we've come to a place in time where we're reverting back to the place where we as Indigenous people, as women, can take our rightful places in world again. And, you know, it's time for our communities to be nurtured and to have strong leadership. That's not to say there wasn't in the past, excuse me there, but there really was. And we're really happy to see you as part of that leadership team. Miigwech, and I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for asking. And I just want to acknowledge our elder, who is with us as well. And Doris Ross is a beautiful elder, Flemish Property First Nation. And it's really significant that she joins us today for this swearing in. Miigwech.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I tell Bill anything?
Move on to, regular business now. Okay.
Councillor
Bill couldn't zoom in. We're trying to get him.
He's there now.
Okay. Thank you. You can go, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rebecca, call me, please call me. Okay, she's not coming in person. Okay, tell them you're okay.
Welcome back, everybody. We'll get the meeting underway. We'll start out with approval of agenda. Can I get a mover? Bill? Jason? Move the approval for agenda? Okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
It's just a verbal.
Just a verbal, okay. 104, there's a motion. Oh, yeah. All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to number 4. We have a delegation / presentation, Emma Lachette and Ms. Beverly Boyd and Ms. Lisa Proctors from the situation table. If you guys want to go ahead and start your presentation, we're ready to go.
Kathy, would you like me to screen share, or are you able to?
Sure.
And Bev, you're there, correct? Okay, perfect. Congratulations, by the way, Melanie, while we're getting set up.
Did you want to start things off or did you want one of us to do that? Oh gosh.
We're not sharing right now. We're trying to share a screen, but we can't seem to do it. Do you know
Yeah,
how?
I thought you had to stop your share.
We don't have a share on.
I could do it here if you guys, if you're
Yeah.
not able to. Okay, just give me 1 second here. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Bev, do you want to speak, or does it matter to you, or?
Whatever you like.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll just start off and introduce myself. So my name is Emma Blanchett. I think I know the majority of you guys. I am a social worker here in Wawa. I work for the Canadian Mental Health Association, and myself, Bev, and Anna are representing a group of service providers in the community, collectively known as the Situation Table. So we are a group of community partners that deal with acutely elevated risks in the community. We meet on a monthly basis. And we had this current situation brought up at the table last week. So we thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. And I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So I'm Annalisa Klogers. I think I know most people and most people know me. So I work for the Algoma District Services Administration Board. I was a client service worker and I'm currently in a housing services supervisor position. And as Emma said, that the situation did come up at the situation table, and we would just kind of like to bring it to council and see if we can maybe work on some solutions for the housing crisis in Wawa.
Mm-hmm. And Bev, do you?
Yeah, so again, I'm a member of the Situation Table. I'm the executive director at
Okay. So the situation was brought to light by the building 33 Mackey. So for those of you who don't know, it's the white building down the street from the laundromat. So we were recently informed that that unit is closing. All tenants have been given notice to leave. We have March 31st here. That's actually no longer accurate. So I was informed by the caretaker yesterday that that individual is stepping back. My understanding is that this unit is owned by a now defunct organization, corporation, I guess. And this is kind of stuff that we hope to have some clarification about, just if there's any solution in regards to this particular building. So essentially when this caretaker steps away, none of the bills are going to be paid, the propane. So we have 4 individuals residing in this unit, or sorry, in this building. There's 6 units in the building. So we are going to have 4 people that are homeless in the coming weeks. Historically speaking, 33 Mackey has been home to some vulnerable individuals who may be considered hard to house. We are very concerned where these people are going to go when this unit closes. So again, this has just brought to light the whole problem that our community is facing. And I know that this is not specific to Wawa. I know that it is like a housing crisis Canada-wide, but it's very concerning. Up to now, we haven't really seen homelessness in our faces, and we are going to speak to that a bit later. But we are a bit fearful about the trajectory that this is kind of going right now, that we may actually be seeing that. And I don't think anybody wants that. So we're just going to talk about a couple points. So housing as a social determinant of health, just an overall picture of homelessness in our community, the hidden homelessness that is essentially what Wawa has, and maybe some possible solutions. So housing is a social determinant of health, so non-medical factors that influence health outcomes. So when somebody doesn't have a place to sleep, how do we expect them to get help for their mental health, for their physical health, to hold down a job, to take care of their kids, to focus on any form of wellness. It's just not possible when you're living in that elevated state of stress and worrying about where you're going to spend the night. Everything else kind of falls to the wayside. So it's a significant healthcare issue, and it produces really big costs to our economy, which we will talk about. We're kind of worried, and I know we see this already, the impact on the healthcare system and just other services in general too, which Anna can speak to. The impact on mental health care, on inpatient services at the hospital, or emergency room, EMS, police services, where we've had clients that have intentionally committed crimes because they do not want to sleep outside in -30. So they commit a crime, so they're taken to, at least a warm cell for the night. And that's just not a good system. I think we can probably all agree on that. And just another point, people can't get a job if they do not have a home address. So really working from a housing first model where we're able to minimize the stress by getting a roof over people's head, then we can work on all of the other stressors that are going on, is really important. Just some costs, just in case people are, into numbers, but a hospital bed on average is $13,500 a month. It's 22 times more expensive than investing in social housing, which these numbers are probably a bit more increased now, where the average social housing is about $613 a month. I would say that has probably increased, but still much, much higher. So Anna, I will let you talk about the ADSAP piece.
Thanks, Emma. So prior to this meeting, I had run some stats just to give people an idea of what WAL was facing in terms of homelessness and where people are situated on wait lists. So currently right now in Wawa, we have 41 residents that are on the social housing wait list. So this means that they may have housing, they're in current housing, but the likelihood is that that there's an affordability issue, whether it be the rent is too high, the heating utility costs are too high. It's not safe housing. That's something that we see often, that people don't have safe housing. Or of course, there's priorities if they're looking to leave an abusive relationship, human trafficking, and most recently homelessness, which I will speak to. So again, there are 41 WAR residents that are on our social housing wait list. 3 of those residents are in fact homeless, so they have no place to live. That could be their couch surfing. I think that's most likely the case, but there are these pending tenants from 33 Mackey that are in fact going to be homeless. So currently we have 18 people on the wait list for 37 Algoma, which is the new building. There are 17 people on the wait list for 35 Algoma. So these aren't all Wawa residents. These are applicants from, they could be from anywhere, from Southern Ontario. We have some from Alberta. So these are all people sitting on the wait list. There are 40 people on the wait list for Hillcrest. And then we have 15 people on the wait list for Spruce and the Spruce and Superior homes. I want to speak a little bit about the implementation of the Algoma by name list. So one thing that ADSAB is in the process of implementing, and it's a quick solution. Well, it's not a quick solution, but it's in response to the growing homelessness issues that are being experienced throughout the province. So the ministry mandated that all service managers have to implement a by name list for their service area, and that was effective January 1st. So a by name list is basically a list of people who are experiencing homelessness and want help to access housing and housing related services and support. And every DSAB is required to have one of these by name lists. So a by name list makes up a part of a larger housing and support system, which we really need to start working towards. In the future, Algoma's by name list will form part of a coordinated access system, and that may include various community partners that will provide a variety of direct housing related services and supports to the residents of Algoma. They would also act as additional entry points where people could register for the by name list using a common assessment tool, as well as providing wraparound services for homeless individuals until they become housed. So at the onset, the by name list will be led by ADSAB and will be the only entry point. So people will be added to the list as they connect or reconnect with ADSAB staff or any ADSAB local offices or through any future enumeration efforts. So there was a homelessness enumeration that was completed in the spring. Actually, I don't remember when it was now. It was time's going by so quickly. It was last year at some point in time. And that's where it was a point in time, anyone that came to our office, we would ask them what their current housing situation is. And if homeless, then they would be considered a stat. So this by name list, the enumeration will be another effort or another way that we will get names on the by name list. So the management and use of the by name list will be a shared responsibility between our client services unit at ADSAB as well as our housing services unit. The main objectives will be to prioritize homeless persons to receive offers of ADSAB housing and subsidies. It will also provide an additional opportunity for our client services group to engage with homeless individuals, really focusing on their housing needs and linking them to supports or programs that they might find helpful in finding or maintaining housing. It's also going to provide ADSAB with actual real-time housing need data to inform future housing decisions, programs, policies, and funding of homelessness issues in the area. And it's going to paint a clearer picture of what homelessness looks like in Algoma. So we've started collecting this data, and it's scary to say that we do have homeless people in our community across the Algoma district, but specifically in Wawa. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean that it's not happening, and it's just going to get worse, I fear, in the next few months. Thanks, Emma.
So one solution that we have kind of come up with, which is very transitional and very temporary, is we developed a safe bed. So we do not have a men's shelter here. The closest men's shelter is in Sault Ste. Marie, which is running over capacity right now. So even if we do have a homeless male here, it's impossible to get them into a shelter in Sault Ste. Marie. So we rented an apartment from a private landlord. We have developed policies and procedures. So we're able to put people in there during a time of a housing crisis for a temporary stay. So it's a fully furnished apartment. They don't have to pay anything. And the idea just kind of goes back to what I was speaking to earlier. We get a roof over their head and let's work on the other stuff that needs to be worked on. And the goal is essentially to secure long-term housing. So that is in partnership with myself at CMHA, Wawa Area Victim Services, ADSAB, and the OPP. We generally do gear it towards males because women can usually go to Chadwick homes. So it's been very helpful when we have had a homeless individual. We're able to at least have this as a safety net, but it's just not enough at this point. And I mean, it's absolutely going to get used when 33 Mackey is closed down. Bev, do you have anything to add or?
No.
Okay. Okay, I just didn't want to leave you out. So back to the hidden homelessness. So like we do have homelessness in our community, even though we can't see it. And I know it's very easy for people to think that we don't, but we do. There is a ton of couch surfing, staying with friends and family, and at what cost? Are people staying in abusive relationships because they have nowhere else to go? Are they staying there in exchange for sexual favors? Are they living in their vehicle? Are they squatting in abandoned buildings or squatting in foyers? We do have it here. We all see it as service providers, and I'm sure we've all heard. So we're just looking for solutions. So I know when we were developing the community safety plan, housing came up numerous times in all communities. And we understand that this is not happening overnight. And we understand that this is not unique to Wawa at all. But we're hoping to be able to work together. We have a really eager group of service providers that are hoping to meet and hoping to just explore options. And Again, reiterating, we understand this is not easy and not unique to our community. But I really do fear that this is just going to get worse if we're not trying to figure out a solution right now. So if we can maybe form a working group to kind of tackle this, we're open to anything at this point. So
Emma, can you hear me now?
yeah.
Okay, so just can you flip back to the safe bed slide for a minute, please?
Yep.
So when we talk about our safe bed here in our community, it is a small apartment. It is used every month. Often it's used by transient people who end up here. As you know, it's very difficult to get out of town if you, yeah, it's hard to get out of town, especially if you had a vehicle that's been crashed and totaled and you have a pile of stuff. It's really hard to get on the bus. If you add a pet to that, you're not getting on the bus. And you can't rent a car. And sometimes these people end up staying here for a number of days. So it's the cheapest option for us at this point is put them in the safe bed. And that works fine if we don't have our own community member in there. Chadwick Home at the present time is at 50% capacity because of COVID. So they are only accepting victims of domestic violence at this point in time. So if it's just homelessness, they're not accepting them. So we've actually had to put women into the safe bed. And it's just not sufficient, even though it might be empty once in a while, it's not sufficient. And we're really concerned at the end of March or whenever the utilities are cut off at 33 Mackey, if they are indeed cut off, because there won't be any propane or oil or whatever they use to heat, that we are going to have at least one very vulnerable woman on the streets. We have no place that we can think of to place her at this point in time. And if the safe bed is open at that point, we could probably put one of the male occupants into the other one, but it's really not an appropriate place for our female. And I mean, we're all going to know who she is. And one of the things that's very different about our own community is when we see somebody walking down the street, we know who they are and we know if they're homeless. If they're homeless and sleeping down at the beach, we're going to know who they are. It's not going to be just another homeless person. It's going to be so-and-so. And we're going to be very well aware of who that is. And so we're really concerned about that. Can you go to the next slide, please, Emma?
Yep. Sorry, just hang on 2 seconds. This one, Beth?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay.
So we do know that there's a number of people that are living in substandard homes, homes that really aren't sufficient in terms of heating, in terms of utilities. You know, sometimes cleanliness is a problem. We know that there's people living like that, but at least they've got some kind of shelter over their head. We also know that there are a lot of people who are doing what we call couch living. We get accustomed to that sometimes when people are teenagers because they get mad at their mom and their mom gives them the boot and they go to their friends and they couch there for a few weeks and then they go back home. But when it becomes a way of life and people are going from house to house, from friend to friend, and they may be staying with somebody who is living in substandard housing who can't even afford what they've got, but they're off the streets. And so we know that we have that going on. And we also know that sometimes in those situations, if we get calls, sometimes there's disputes amongst them. They don't own the house, they're just living in it. The other person is the tenant. They're afraid they're going to get tossed out. They don't know if they're living with a guy whose boyfriend it is or whose girlfriend it is. If it's like, it's just, it can be a real mess. And as Emma said, we don't know what the cost is or how they're paying to stay. And it may not be a way that you or I would be willing to pay, but they don't have a choice. So we do have this happening. We do have people living in vehicles. Now, when people are being transient, they're going by vehicles, sometimes they make that choice. I'm going to live in my vehicle. Yeah, I know it's winter. I'm going to, wrap up. I'm going to bring my sleeping bag and I'm going to sleep in it. If people are living in their vehicles long-term over the winter, it's just not acceptable. I know one of the things we did at Victim Services last year is we bought some tents and a few cots and sleeping bags in case we had people that we could not house because didn't have as many rooms. And if we had to put them somewhere, we weren't going to just leave them on the street. But when it's 30 below, that doesn't happen. Not going to freeze to death. And so, you know, and people squatting, oh goodness. You can imagine some of the derelict buildings we have in the community. And when you think there's probably people living in them, maybe creating little fires in them so that they can try and stay warm, maybe not, who knows, we're not walking around every night looking in them, but we do know that there are people squatting in places that they're really not supposed to be. And they're substandard places where they are. So we are really, really concerned. As part of the solutions, we were brainstorming some of the things that places maybe we could fix or where they could go. And we also have a gentleman who lives on Mackey Street who owns the building, as I understand it, and the ceiling came in on his apartment, and now he's also homeless. He's going to go back to his apartment, I believe, even though he's elderly, but it's his choice if he wants to go back. It is a place you can go, and I will be going there, even though probably shouldn't. But again, adults make decisions what they want. There are a number of buildings in town that are not being used. I don't know who owns them all. We were trying to find out the whole situation with 33 Mackey. We believe, and we could be completely wrong, that it is owned actually by a corporation, as well as the house just down the street from the one that used to be Maddie's, the little short red one, that is owned by the same corporation. Here it's going to come up for tax, but we don't really know that. So we were just looking around, and so we thought, the township will know more about what's going on with these homes, these empty homes we have in our community. And are they even something that can be fixed? And is there something we can do? So what we're really asking is that we get that housing committee up and running, and that we're not only just looking at housing for, people who are coming here to work, but also housing for those hard to house. Not fancy housing. It doesn't have to, have 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and dining, all of that. It needs to be a room with a bathroom and maybe a kitchen sink and a hot plate. We need something that is up to standard, I guess, old fire code, and not falling down on people's heads. And so we really want to see that housing committee get going and have that as one of their focuses, not just looking at making nice houses for people who can afford them.
Bev, can I just?
Nothing. Go ahead.
I think it's important to note that, as all of these service providers, we've been very, very creative in our solutions for dealing with transients and homeless people, or, people that displaced for whatever reason. We're very lucky that we can all come together and work and come up with these creative solutions. But at this point, we are out of solutions. We just, I can speak from the ADSAB. We have housing subsidies that we can offer for people to, subsidize their rent with a private landlord. We have our social housing units, but the reality is there's no place, like it doesn't matter if we have all these subsidies available to people if there's nowhere for them to go. We can't even start addressing that issue. So I think, the fact that we have exhausted all of our solutions as a group really speaks to the importance of some sort of a working group being formed, and getting creative with the municipality, with the help of the municipality, to address this issue.
And just to add to your point, Donna, too, we have to deal with this within our community, because it's not as simple as just relocating people, moving clients to the SU. The shelters there are operating over capacity. They also just do not have space. So those are not options either. So.
Can I ask if anybody has any questions before we close?
That's right. I was just going to turn it over to the councillors.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Is Hillcrest Heights completely every apartment is maybe?
Sir, I didn't hear the question.
Is Hillcrest Heights completely full?
Yes.
Well, if there's ever
And there's
one that's empty, you should consider opening it up to 4 or 5 people that are homeless.
Like,
Like
survey
one,
them.
just one, have to do something. That's all.
Well, that's, that would be a question for, or a comment for, for the upper management. But the reality is we have, you know, we have people on the wait list that are homeless. And then oftentimes those are just temporary solutions, you know, to offer it to, especially these transient individuals. One thing with this by name list that I should have mentioned and I didn't, is that homelessness never used to be a priority. So if someone was homelessness, they wouldn't be placed on our wait list and be given priority. That is something that has since changed with this new implementation of the by name list. So if someone agrees to be on the by name list and they submit a housing application for ADSAB, we can place them on the wait list with a priority. So that would put them to the top of the wait list. They wouldn't just go in chronological order. So that is one way that ADSAB is working to, address the homelessness in our communities.
Well, we don't want to take up all your whole night. I know you got a lot of things, but
I just wanted to thank you for bringing this really important matter to our attention. I do understand that there is ongoing discussion about certainly housing, certainly in the region, and I'm sure that this council has had those discussions, but I know, social housing is a topic of conversation. So while, I certainly know that, there's not, any commitment or path forward that, we're ready to commit to at this moment, but I know that it's certainly a topic of discussion and we're, it's an issue that we're taking seriously. But I'd like to thank you for the information.
Councilor Jason, are you on the?
I don't see him. Oh, there he is, Mayor.
Okay, before we wrap it up, I would like to thank your group for giving us more insight to the subject because we know this issue. There's also some things that the taxpayers and people of Algoma need to know too, that WALA contributes $1.6 million annually to the ADSAB board and the homeless programs in Algoma. So that's very important. But going forward, if we do get or when you put the housing committee together, let Maureen O'Neill, our CAO, know, and we'll make sure that we have representation on that at that table. So, thank you very much.
it's my understanding, Maury, that you will sort of start it and then we'll join it, or will we start it and you join? I don't really know how that was going to work. So
I was thinking we join it.
I can take care of that, Bev, or we can touch base tomorrow. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for allowing us to speak here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, take care.
No, not at all.
thanks, everybody. And we'll have a good one.
Okay. Let's go to adoptions of minutes. Can I get a mover? Councilor Hatfield? Is that the verbal? Is that? Okay, all in favor? Motion carried. Sorry, I was waiting for you.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. We want to 7.1 operational plan for water drinking operational plan. Is somebody going to speak to that?
Yes, Mayor, our new General Assistant Director of Infrastructure Services is online, Rebecca.
Okay, go ahead. Nice to meet you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becca. Nice to meet you. As Maury mentioned, I'm the new Assistant Director of Infrastructure Services. So essentially what the operations plan is it summarizes the roles and responsibilities of the owner and operator of our water treatment plant. It illustrates how we operate the plant every day. Can you not hear me?
If you could speak a little louder, please, maybe closer to your mic. Our system here is not very good.
Here, let's see. Is this better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'll start again. So yeah, essentially what the operational plan is it summarizes the roles and responsibilities of the owner and operator of the water treatment facility. It illustrates how the plant works, our general day-to-day operations, procedures, suppliers, and then it summarizes again the our document control, the types of sampling we do on a regular basis and their frequencies, our risk management procedures, and our quality management. So if council has any questions, please feel free to ask. I know it's a pretty brief summary, but
How many actual certified operators do we have for the water treatment plant?
right now we have 2 operators for the water treatment plant that have the classifications that they need. We are currently working on getting some new operators and training some more of our staff so that we can have a smoother transition moving forward in terms of employee turnover.
Any other questions? The question I'd like to just comment that it's well done, and this is quite a document.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to 7.2 memo update on the grader. I guess Dan will probably speak to this.
I'm not sure, Rebecca. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could speak to that. Dan's having some technical difficulties with his laptop. So with our grader, we purchased a Caterpillar M4 grader to replace the 2000 Champion that the municipality had. The warranty for our new grader covers about 3,500 hours, so about 3 years worth of use. And since its purchase, we've had a number of relatively frequent and significant maintenance and repair issues was sort of within that warranty period. And so that's been taken care of under the warranty period by Caterpillar. However, we are currently at about 8,400 hours worth of use. Caterpillar has assisted us with sort of remediating some of the repairs and maintenance required outside of that warranty period. However, the typical maintenance or annual maintenance for a machine like this is about $25,000. And currently we have, over the sort of past 3 years, we've kind of spent about $80,000 on top of the annual maintenance. And so that's something that is sort of hard to rectify. The months of November from 2021 to this month, January 2022, we've had a rental grader since our grader was out of commission, and Caterpillar had deemed that it needs a full motor replacement. That motor replacement is going to cost about $70,000. However, we've come to an agreement and negotiated with Caterpillar that they would take half of that and we would cover sort of $35,000 for that motor. That is the upgrade for that piece of equipment. So if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to ask.
Any questions?
Got one here, if you don't mind.
Yep, go ahead.
Caterpillar, are they going to pay for the rental of the one we rented now, or is that obsolete?
No, that's something that we've been covering as a municipality.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the update. Let me read here. We'll move on to 7.3, municipal election 2022. Kathy, you want to speak to this?
Yes. So 2022 is the municipal election year. We are scheduled to have our election on Monday, October 24th, 2022. So the clerk of every municipality is responsible for preparing and conducting all elections, or the municipal election and school board election as prescribed in the Elections Act. And it is the clerk's responsibility to ensure that all eligible electors are given every opportunity to vote in the municipal election, and to ensure that the voting is accessible and accountable to all. So with changes in the Municipal Elections Act, alternative voting was permitted. And in 1997, we saw 24 municipalities in Ontario use the vote by mail process. And by the year 2000, that number had increased to 70. In 2003, of the 417 municipalities, 109 municipalities chose to use vote by mail. In the last election, Wawa chose to use internet and telephone voting. So prior to that, for the period of 2003 through to 2014, Wawa used the vote by mail process. And we found that by using that service, our voter participation had increased significantly. When we were using the traditional paper ballot process, we always found that our voting numbers were always around 50 to 54%. When we went to vote by mail, it increased significantly up to 66% in 2014. In 2018, we chose to go with internet and telephone voting. And we found that voting, our numbers were way down. We went down to about 39%. And we're not quite sure if it was the result of there was no mayor race. Usually we find if there's a race for mayor, we seem to have more people coming out to vote, or maybe people were just content with the people that were running and there were really no contentious issues. So one thing that we did find with the internet and telephone voting, that it improved the convenience for electors to be able to vote, that they were able to vote within their homes using either their computer or by telephone. This enhanced accessibility for the voters, that they could vote at any time during that voting period, at any time of the day or evening. And we had hoped that it would increase the voter turnout, but for some reason it didn't. We also opened up various voting stations throughout the community on various days. So for example, the town hall during the voting period was a voting station, so people could come in at any time during office hours and come in to vote. And we had a computer set up and we walked them through how to vote, and they were able to vote right on site. We also gave them the opportunity to use the telephone if they chose to vote by telephone. We also attended at various locations throughout the community during this process. So for example, we set up a voting station at the economic development offices on one of the days when the food bank was open. We provided 2 separate days at the senior center. One was provided in the morning, one was provided later in the afternoon. We provided a voting station at Mountain View apartment complex on Algoma Street. And so we had somebody working there for a few hours to assist the residents located in that building. We also set up a voting help station at the Lady Dunn Health Center. So first of all, we went into the long-term care. We provided assistance to the residents in the long-term care facility. And then we moved out into the lobby area to help anyone who was visiting at the hospital or at the Wawa Family Health Team if they wish to vote. So what we would like to do is use this service again for the 2022 municipal election, provide internet and telephone voting, but we'll be a little bit more aggressive in promoting the program and provide little short video snippets on our website to show people how they can vote. And, you know, showing a step by step, and hopefully that will encourage people to come out. We will promote the various voting stations again in the community, and that's the process that we're hoping to use. Based on the recommendations in the Wayfinders transformational review under topic AC06, Internet and Telephone Voting, and the strategic plan of 2021 to 2025, it was a recommendation of Wayfinders that we continue using that type of voting. Trying to think what else I need to say. Wayfinders did indicate that there is an opportunity for improvement to increase the number of voters, because again, like I said, we were significantly lower in the number of people that voted. And what they have suggested is that we continue to promote the program and be a little bit more aggressive in getting information out to the public. Recommendations or the options available to us is that we go back with the vote by mail process. And that was the process that was used in 2003 through 2014. Option 2 is use the vote by mail process and use tabulators for the counting of the ballots. And that would reduce the time of having, first of all, people in attendance to count, and it would speed up the counting process. Or we stick with the process that was used in 2018 and use electronic voting, telephone and internet. And we have the results within 5 minutes of the close of the vote. And that would be my recommendation, is that we go with option 3, using the most up-to-date technology for telephone and internet voting.
Any questions?
Kathy, any complaints about the telephone system, like that you've heard of, that people couldn't maneuver through the telephone, that had trouble? Because if you made a mistake, you couldn't go back, or?
I personally did not receive complaints. I've heard of some complaints, but none of those complaints actually came to our office.
Because it just went, the numbers were so low for
Mhm.
voting. Did people have trouble maneuvering through that?
I've only heard the complaints about the telephone, but again, there were no formal complaints filed with the municipality. You just hear the rumblings in the community, but nobody came forward. I wish they would have, because we would have tried to address it, but nobody actually came forward.
Kathy, are you still going to have the different places in town?
Absolutely, and we'll really promote the heck out of them, because we want people to come out and vote. And I can tell you, there was one elderly gentleman that came in and he asked for assistance, and the staff went out and helped him. And when he was finished voting, he was so excited. He said, "I can't wait to go home and tell my wife that I used a computer today, and tell my children that today was the first time I used a computer." And they were really excited that they were able to use the new technology.
What Kathy said about the phones, I heard that more than once. You couldn't go back, or if you made a mistake, like, can that be fixed on the phone, or is there something we can do?
I can check into it as part of the process when we're selecting our vendor.
Because that's the one thing that I heard about too.
Go ahead.
You're still there, Kathy?
I just wanted to say that I'm full supportive of choose selecting option 3. I've heard really good things about from other communities, and that the uptake on adopting new technology is slow, but sometimes change and progress is slow at the start. But I think that it's people will get used to it, and I really see the benefits moving forward.
Councilor Jason?
Yeah, I got one question for Kathy on the phoning in. I know my family had troubles with the phone in, because the minute they hit the one person, it was all over with. They didn't have a chance to vote for the second or third person they wanted. And when they say, who do you contact to get, but I hope that's going to be cleared up this year and it'll be a lot easier if you give instructions on the phone and how to do it. I think Kathy, you got great ideas. Train everybody a little
Okay.
better.
Okay. So give actual written instruction for telephone
Thank you.
voting. Okay.
And mailed out with.
Yeah, with the PIN information.
Like I know
We
that
can
you
do
gave
that.
instructions, but a lot of the older people had trouble with, like I said, maneuvering through that telephone system. And even if, can we have it more at the community center? They like going to the community center and voting for some reason, like, and we could still do it the other way, but at least they can get the help. And they're all, it's at the community center, and that's where you vote.
And actually, Councillor Cannon, we did do that. We did open up a voting help station with the assistance of the Economic Development Corporation. And so they had a number of staff there. We also sent some of our staff down to help, and we had multiple stations set up so that people could go there, and we helped and walk them through the voting process
Maybe
on voting
more,
day.
more advertising
Yeah.
that it's, you know, you're spending, you know,
Yeah.
2 days at the community center, and for anybody who doesn't want to do the telephone at home and needs
Mhm.
help, then they can go to the community center and just so that maybe it'll bring up the numbers. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like I didn't have any trouble doing it, and neither did my husband or anything, but I know some of the older people that I take care of, one of them had trouble, and the other one went for help. And he actually went and held it. He had no trouble once he got the help.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
So that'll come up in the later time, or is that?
It'll come back to a future meeting
Okay.
for resolution.
Okay, we'll move on to 7.4, committee vacancies. There's quite a few committees that we do not have members on. And what I suggested we put it up there and we'll just walk through it. We got the Walla BI, Service Support, Age Friendly Committee, Walla Marina Committee, Medical Recruitment, and Retention Committee, and the Community Well-being Committee. Plus all the ones that we have people on already. These are just the ones that are vacant. So from, I'll just ask out if anybody's interested in that.
I am.
Okay, Cassie's on the BIA. Police Services Board, interested in that one? Yeah.
Oh, well, if you want to put your name down, so go ahead.
Okay, I'll, Melanie,
No, thank you.
okay. My name up in the Police Services Board. Age Friendly Committee,
I would.
Walla Marina Committee,
I'll take it on if you won't.
I'll take that one.
Thank you. I was hoping.
Medical Recruitment and Retention Committee.
I'll take that.
Any interest in any?
No,
Wait,
at this point, I'm not.
okay, well, that's all right, yeah, I just, like I said, it's like. Vince, you gonna take that on?
Yeah.
Bill, just chime in there anytime you want. Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee,
There, now I got you. Sorry it took the time to get out.
do you want us to review those,
Yes, I'm staying with the committees. Wherever you need one, put me in.
What was that last one you
Okay.
mentioned, Mayor?
Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee, Bill?
You'd call it, we'll be there.
It's a virtual list here. Okay, that puts that behind us for this term. And then the next term, the council, do whatever, we'll do that all over again.
Mayor Pat, did you want to remain on the library board?
Pardon?
Did you want to remain on the library board?
Oh, I just thought we were just.
Yes, we're not.
Oh, we're not going to?
No, we're just adding the new vacant one.
Okay.
Going to the vacant ones.
Okay, sorry. My apologies.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to express interest if we have an economic development board or if there's an economic development. I would like to express interest on that board. Should be great.
Yep, okay, for sure. Can we document that somewhere?
Yes, I
So
will make sure it's in the notes, and we do have a draft terms of reference that we'll bring forward at council because it is a committee. The council indicated earlier in the fall that it would be looking at putting together in the next couple of months.
Good, excellent. Thank you.
Just one council member?
I think it's open to council's decision, how many councillors to be on that committee. So we'll bring it back up to council, maybe at the next corporate meeting for discussion.
Okay, we'll go to 7.5 from MMCC reopening. Probably Alex is going to speak to this. Good evening, Alex.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just keep your
Good.
voice up.
I'll try my best. Okay, so a quick update on the community center. I don't have any documentation in front of council because the community center to reopen it didn't require as much change as we were worried about. So we're really happy to have been able to reopen on Monday with very limited changes in the regulations. So a couple really basic things have changed. One of the first ones that's been common since mid-January, but has changed at the community center for us now that we're reopened, is requiring QR codes as proof of vaccination. Everything else essentially remains the same, and there's a couple things that have actually been removed. One of those things that have been removed is the requirement for contact tracing. We still have screening requirements, masking requirements, all of the things that people are used to. But what that's allowed us to do is not have to modify the schedule that we had at the start of December. So the community center has reopened on Monday with essentially a normal schedule, minus a couple things because of staff capacity. So essentially the things that the municipality runs have been delayed to next week as we get spun up. All of our fitness classes are online right now, but we're planning in-person fitness classes next week. And all of the programs that are run by community groups, so minor hockey, figure skating, curling, all of those things are in operation this week. So really quick update for you folks. If you have any questions about any specifics, please let me know.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Alex, how did you make out keeping those boys busy through the last shutdown?
I'll have a couple social media posts about it, but there's some things that are actually a lot harder for us to do during shutdown when they're not in use than in regular use. So for example, the curling ice required probably 60 hours of work to get back up to snuff once it had been sitting for the 2 weeks over Christmas and then a little bit further. And we've actually been working on it pretty steady for the last 2 weeks in preparation for reopening, because it receives a ton of damage when it's not regularly maintained and when there's a whole bunch of different airflow, especially at -30 when the air is so dry, it really messes with the ice surface. We also had a bunch of projects on the go. So some of them are really small things like replacing every sink in the dressing room. Some of them are bigger things like some plant maintenance, some painting projects, work around the shop that we've been putting off for a couple of weeks. So everybody stayed pretty busy.
Thank you.
Any questions? Bill, you got any questions? Alex? No, guess not. Thanks, Alex, for that information.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 7.6. MMAH approved funding under the municipal modernization program. This is a really good news. Gordon, you want to talk to that? This is
Thank
good
you.
news.
Very good news for mayor and council in the community of Wawa. We made 3 applications to the most recent municipal modernization fund program. And mayor and council were recently advised that we were successful for all 3 applications we put forward, bringing about $320,000 in grant revenue for the following projects. Number 1, and I'm going to skip to the best, and that is new audio and visual equipment to be forthcoming to help us with our council meetings to ensure our residents and our staff are better seen and heard for council meetings. So there's audiovisual equipment for the council chambers, for the arena, and new iPads to come for council. So that funding is much appreciated, and we'll go towards that project immediately after tonight. $152,000 of the modernization funding is going to a very important set of projects that all relate to water and wastewater management. So under Dan Beach and Rebecca Weatherall, we will be doing, number one, a new water financial plan. That is a requirement, statutory requirement of our water treatment plant, and we'll get started on that financial plan. Second to that is a long-term water meter, water and wastewater rate study, so we can forecast better into the future how it might look for our rates for our citizens, and how our rates might have to be adjusted over time to deal with our unfunded infrastructure deficit. So we'll also do a study on that. And thirdly, the exciting part of this is also a waste water and water management plan. So we can look at the long term for the community to determine where council may have to look at putting funding to extend water or sewer services for the benefit of the community, whether it be for future housing development, commercial development, or other development. So all three studies will be third-party studies that we'll go out to request for proposals on. And within a year, we'll have all these three studies put forward by staff to council for approval with generous funding from the ministry. That particular project's funded at 75% government, 25% municipality. And lastly, but not leastly, under our clerk's leadership, we have $103,000 to go towards a new records management system. We've talked about this at the council and the staff level for several years, but we now have funding that will go towards new electronic management software. Hiring, we are able to hire some staff support with this program and get a records management system underway. So on behalf of staff, who I congratulate for putting excellent funding applications forward, I wish to thank council and the mayor for supporting these applications of the province for moving forward. So tonight on the regular agenda are three bylaws to enter into agreements for the province for this funding. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. That's all about moving this community ahead. It's new technology, it's water, and sewer plans, it's records retention, so we have to go back to the past to find something, so that's good. Anybody got any questions? No questions? Okay, thank you very much. Next one is 7.7, the Phenom Conference in North Bay. I think this is going to be held in person this year, and we're going to put we're going to send in 2 registrations, and if you not necessarily right now, but if you want to bring the names forward to Maury over the next few weeks, so we can decide at that point who is. If it's just 2, it's easy problem. If it's 3 or 4, we've got to make choices to who goes in this one. So just give your name, and then we'll see how it comes up. Thank you. Number 8, in camera, there's none. Business horizon for closed session, there's none. Next meeting date will be Tuesday, February the 15th. Can I get a mover to close the meeting? Councilor Hatfield. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the regular council meeting. Okay, you ready to go? Okay, we'll call this meeting to order at 7:45. No other present, the members that are present, councilors and staff. We'll the closure of pecuniary interest, anyone? Seeing none? We'll move forward. Number 3, approval of the agenda. So we got a motion.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Pilo. Resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, February 1st, 2022 be approved as amended.
All in favor? Motion carried. There's none. Number 5, announcements of giving of notice. Got a motion? No, that's just information. Okay, if anybody wants to read up or check on something, that's all there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
the committee that I volunteered for tonight, I don't see it on here. How do I get notice?
Which committee, Councillor?
The medical.
Police and,
Police and medical. Also,
I know it's 8 o'clock
medical.
in the morning for medical, but I'm not sure when, and I don't know the resources.
So you are adding a motion tonight to appoint everyone?
No, I just wondered when they.
Oh, I'll forward you that information. That committee is a committee of the Lady Dunn Hospital. So I will let them know and you will be informed through them of the next meeting.
Oh, okay,
It'll be near the end of February.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, adoption of minutes. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Pilon. Resolved that the following minutes of a meeting of council be adopted as presented. A, minutes of a regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, January 11, 2022, as contained on pages 1 to 5, inclusive of the minute book. And B, minutes of a special meeting of council held on Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, as contained on pages 1 to 3, inclusive of the minute book.
All in favor? Motion carried. 7, again, it's just correspondence. Information here, if you have any questions, just come forward and that stuff. It's sharing information. Number 8, consent agenda.
Mayor, I believe Councillor Cannon had a question.
It's okay.
No, go ahead.
I just, all that information about the prisoner transportation and everything, how does that, what part of that pertains to Wawa? Like, we don't bring anybody to court from the jail. Sometimes they do,
Yes,
and it's all done by the OPP.
yes.
Thank you. Move number 8, consent agenda, the motion for that.
Moved by Councillor Pilon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that the items listed under consent agenda 8.2 to 8.4 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Motion carried. Of the staff reports, see staff reports, resolution.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Pilon. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive staff report CC 2022-01 municipal election 2022, a copy of which is attached here too.
All in favor? Move on to lesson number 10, move on to number 11, new business, receive and endorse the water drinking system operational plan.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive and endorse the Wawa Drinking Water Quality Management System, the DWQMS operational plan dated January 2022, a copy of which is attached here too.
All in favor? Motion carried. Motion, move down to 13, bylaws.
11.2.
Well, there's none, I didn't see that.
There's none.
11.2, approve tax rates for 2022 resolution.
Tax.
taxi.
Taxi rates?
It's too small, right? The taxi rates, sorry, approved taxi rates for 2022 resolution.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby authorize the replacement of the rate of fares for taxis and taxi cabs as contained in Schedule B in Municipality of Wawa bylaw number 1510-02. And such new rate shall be in accordance with the schedule of fees as adopted annually by bylaw. And further, that council directs staff to update the taxi cab and taxi bylaw as soon as practicable.
All in favor? Oh, good, okay, motion carried. I just want to make sure you said it. No notice of motion, so we'll move on to 13 bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. Bylaw number 3463-22 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings held on the 25th day of January 2022 and the first day of February 2022. Bylaw number 3464-22 to fill a vacancy in the office of member of council for the municipality of Wawa. Bylaw number 3465-22 to enter into an agreement with FEDNOR under the Northern Ontario Development Program to provide contribution towards the installation of airport lighting. Bylaw number 3466-22 to enter into a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario for funding under the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Municipal Modernization Program Intake 3 for the Water and Wastewater Master Plan. Bylaw number 3467-22 to enter into a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario for funding under the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Modernization Program, Intake 3 for Council and Services Delivery Modernization. Bylaw number 3468-22 to enter a transfer payment agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario for funding under the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Municipal Modernization Program, Intake 3 for Electronic Records Management Modernization.
All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, number 14, now we're going to move into a closed session at 7:53.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that this committee proceed in camera at 7:53 p.m. in order to address the following matters too. Item number 1, legal issue. 2 items, request to purchase property related to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. 2, a legal issue. There's 1 item, request for extension to a temporary zoning bylaw amendment site plan agreement, and it's related to the security of property of the municipality or local board. 1 item under a personnel matter, harassment related to a to a litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Personnel issue, there's 2 items, the CAO contract and employee benefits related to labor relations or employee negotiations. And there's a legal issue, 1 item, taxation, litigation, or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you. And Mayor, if we could have a few minutes to transition, and I would ask Councillor Chaso to disconnect from Zoom, and we will call you on the telephone, and then you can join Zoom after. So we'll have her in camera via telephone.
And for, thank you.
Thank you.
It's so nice.
Lawyer's not gone. Start the deal.
We're back in session. Yeah.
Moved by Counselor Hatfield, resolved that the meeting close at 8:52 PM.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Coffee, just the one piece back.
Yes, please.